it's Nicole and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you some orchids that I've been struggling with and how I would have changed their care to prevent them from getting this bad. In some cases, they're pretty much dead like this one, so stay tuned and I will walk you through all of these orchids and share what I would have done differently. So I thought it'd be interesting to show you guys some of these orchids that I'm struggling with. These are the main ones. Not everything grows well for me in my collection. In some cases, I've made mistakes, and in other cases, the plant vigor wasn't there. It wasn't a very strong plant, and I noticed that it declined. So I'm going to walk you through some of these orchids. Now this one is on the brink of death. It pretty much is dead right now. This one's the Ascocentrum ampillaceum crossed with the Ascocentrum miniatum. I got this orchid with my Vanda haul from Orchid Classics. I will link that video down below for you guys, but this is 1 out of 10 that this one just didn't do well for me. The rest of my Vandas are looking good. They're nice and plump. Their leaves look good, but for some reason, this was the most mature orchid. It had a lot of spikes, so it bloomed previously before I got it. When I received it, it was in spike and it had really nice blooms, but it just slowly declined. So when I got it, I potted it up in coconut husk. I tried to keep it nice and moist, but I noticed it struggled in the winter. And if there's something that I could have done differently with this orchid is I should have given it more humidity. So I did not turn on the humidifier until much later in the grow season. I do think you can grow Vandas indoors in New York City, and I do have many other Vandas that are doing really well, but I think this one suffered from too much dryness and it did not enjoy the humidity. So if I could do it again, I would have had my humidifier on. It just kept dropping leaves, and that should have been my first warning sign. I could have sprayed it. I could have moved it closer to the humidifier. I could have made sure that this was more moist and monitored it a little closely, but I think these leaves are also gonna fall off. This orchid is pretty much dead. Bummer. Okay, this one isn't quite dead, but I'm having a little trouble with it. This one is the Hauiara Lava Burst Ponami. So this one, the leaves are starting to dry out. It was in spike when I received it. It bloomed. I didn't notice any issues with the leaves until later on in its bloom cycle. But I think with one division orchids, they tend to be a little bit weaker. So if I could go back in time and save this orchid from this condition, I probably would have cut the spike off. It probably sucked the life out of this bulb. I don't know how it's gonna do, but I'm gonna keep this humid. The mix in here is pretty airy. It's got husk and some moss. It's in a relatively small pot, but this is a small plant. I'm gonna let this dry and then water again. I don't want it to be too soggy in there, but also I don't want it to get dry. So if I could go back in time, I would just cut that flower spike the minute I saw those leaves get wrinkly. But I think it's just the case with one bulb divisions, unfortunately, that sometimes they're not gonna be as vigorous as something with many more bulbs, but we'll see how this does. I'm rooting for it. This next one is the SL Mini Pet. I got this from Sunset Valley Orchids, and when I repotted it, I noticed that it had a pretty bad root system. Now, I repotted it 1 year ago, and it only pushed out this like little growth, which never progressed. I bought 2 of these, so my mom has the other one. Hers has bloomed twice, but mine has not bloomed. And I think we treat it pretty much the same way. She has hers in organic, I have mine in organic, and hers is much more vigorous. It's pushing growths left and right. We bought it at the same time. We repotted it at the same time. It lost a leaf, and one of the old growths has dried off. I think in this case, this is one where the plant vigor just wasn't there. It also had a very poor root system when I got it. I don't think I would have changed anything on this. I'm gonna monitor this growth. I'm still gonna try and see if anything sprouts. We do have a new root that's trying to poke through right here. So I do have hope this is gonna pull through. And how I'm gonna take care of this is I'm gonna make sure that this mix stays a little bit moist. But I'm happy that it's in a clay pot because then it'll dry it out quickly, which is essential for any Catlia type orchids that you're trying to bring back to health. This is something I would not put in semi-hydro because it would kill off those existing roots, and we want new roots that will support new growths. Okay, this one looks really terrible. This is the Orangus lutioalba variation Verdostica. This is all I have left. So I got this from Orchids by the Lake from Yoshi's store. I got it really nice and healthy, but when I got a thrips infestation, unfortunately, it killed most of this plant. And by the time I noticed, I touched the leaf and it fell off. So this got heavily infested. 2 little leaves left, and it's not looking good. So I think I'm gonna have to throw this away. I mean, it does have a decent leaf. I think I'm holding on way too long. I do tend to do that, but if I could do this again, I would just stay on top of pests a little bit more. I would just look a little closer because this had thrips that were hiding on the undersides of the main leaves that I did not know about for months. If I caught it sooner, this orchid would have been just fine. So this is a bummer, but what can you do? It happens. Okay, now this one is dead, and I really need to throw it away. This is the Catlia luciola. I got this from the Tamiami Orchid Festival. It came with a pretty bad root system. I got this for 10 bucks. I remember it was on discount. Maybe it was a little less, but it was a really good deal. When I saw it didn't have any roots, I potted it up in coconut husk just because my thinking was it's airy yet moisture retentive, and it just slowly declined. If I could do this again, I think I would have put it in moss instead of coconut husk because I think maybe it needed maybe just a little more moisture. And then when I look through, I did not pack this down super tight, so there's fibers in there that you could sort of see through. So you could sort of see the pot through the top. So I don't know if I did a good job keeping good moisture in here. So I think that's the only thing I would have changed. Like I do think we need an airy mix, but we need to keep it moist, and I should have watered this a little bit more just given that it's not very tightly packed in there. But I think this was doomed from the get-go, just given it had no roots at all. It came in like a little package where you couldn't see the roots, so when I opened it up, I knew it was gonna have some problems, but I think it's time I throw this away. Such a bummer. I really wanted this one. Up next, we have the Zygo luisendorf, and this orchid lost its main growth, and you could see that kind of faded away. Then it lost the leaves on the other growth, but it's growing a new growth. I'm watching it closely because I'm noticing some issue on the leaves, but I potted it up in coconut husk. It started declining during the summer. That's when I noticed that the growth started dying off. So I think this one likes cooler temperatures. If I could do this again, I would have moved this to my bedroom where it's a little cooler than the grow space. I let the grow space get to even 100 degrees in our summers. I don't air condition the room because I have a lot of Catlias, and I noticed that with the heat, the Catlias do really, really well. So I have a lot of hot growers, but I shouldn't sacrifice my Zygos and some of my more intermediate growers for that. So I should have moved this to a cooler location. But I like that it has a new growth, and we'll see where it goes from here. Up last, we have the Dendrobium Lemon Pink cross with the Dendrobium Hollywood. This orchid has been a struggle for me ever since I got it. It's had a lot of spotting on the leaves. I've noticed that it just doesn't grow well. It's a spider mite magnet. It always has spider mites. I've had to cut leaves. And then to top it all off, the orchids that I got with this seedling that were this size have gone on to become blooming sized orchids. So I've had this for 2 years, and for a denphal, it is just growing really, really slow, really lost progress. It did not like semi-hydra. It was super wobbly in the pot. One can argue that it's still kind of wobbly in the pot. It's just not doing great. I don't know if this orchid has a virus or something like that, but I'm starting to notice that it has a new growth. I was actually on the verge of throwing this out when I started repotting, but the new growth has given me some hope that everything's going to be okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to watch that new growth, see if it pushes out a good root system, and then see if there's any blemishes or anything like that on these new leaves. If not, I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of this orchid. The plant vigor has not been there. 2 years of growth has basically turned out to nothing when I compare it to the other seedlings that I got with this. And, you know, this does give me hope though. And I do treat it the same way as my other orchids. I just don't like that it's such a pest magnet. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's virus. So I keep it away from some of my other orchids, but this growth is giving me hope. Well, anyway, guys, I hope you liked this video. I wanted to share some of the orchids that I'm struggling with and what I think would have prevented some of them from declining so fast. In some cases, for sure, I made a mistake with them, but in other cases, sometimes I find that the plant vigor just isn't there, such as this one. So I just wanted to show you a couple. Let me know down in the comments below if you have any problem children, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye, everyone.